So, I grew up a football coach's kid, a high school football coach's kid. And to be super dramatic about it, I grew up a Texas high school football coach's kid. And, to be more on point, I was a South Texas high school football coach's kid. And really the kind of crux of this story is not only was I a South Texas high school football coach's kid, I was the kid of the football coach that brought the run and shoot offense to South Texas. Okay, so when I said that right there, I've pretty much wiped out all of my knowledge of football, okay? Because I've always been an arts and culture kid, and I've never really paid attention to football. But it is definitely something that has been ingrained in my childhood. So my earliest memories are going to high school football games, sitting at the 50-yard line. In fact, very specifically, I remember a young woman named Dawn, and she was probably either a member of my family's church or one of my dad's students or my babysitter or maybe all three. But I remember sitting with her at the 50-yard line, and she's playing with me and holding me, and there's some high school cheerleaders around. I was probably like 2. And my mom was sitting to the right, and she was tending to my older brother and my baby brother, and we're all watching a high school football game, probably in Leander, Texas, if I'm getting the timeline right. And that was my life. That was my childhood, sitting at the 50-yard line with watching my dad's football team play. And while I was there as a little kid, growing up and began to understand words and dynamics of people in relationships, I heard all kinds of stories. I heard all kinds of plays being acted out in front of me. The drama between the football coaches, the drama between the football coaches and their wives, the drama with the football coaches' wives with each other, the crazy parents' drama with the coaches, the administration's drama with the coaches. It's no wonder I love art and plays and culture growing up in a football house, because that's all that was in front of me was drama and performance and looking at people's behavior. And what I understand now is that while supporting my father's livelihood, Texas high school football, I learned that even when people are connected to each other, even when people are there to gather for the same thing, they still choose to isolate themselves from each other. So anyway, I digress. So my dad brought the run and shoot offense to South Texas in 1978. People who know more about local sports and the history of local sports have explained this to me because, like I said, completely disinterested in this because arts and culture kid. My dad apparently brought in this type of offense because the running game, which is when, bear with me, which is when like the quarterback gets the ball and he either hands it or does like a little toss to a position that I think it's called the running back, but it could be something else, I'm not sure. And that person dashes down the field really fast and furious and tries to avoid guys that are bigger than him on the defense side and make it to the thing that looks kind of like an H. And I think it's called the end zone at the end of the field. And that's what the running game was. But the run and shoot offense, according to what I've been told and what I hear, what happens every Monday night and Sunday and Saturday and Friday night in the fall, is when the quarterback gets the ball and then he throws it really far. And there's some other person on the team, and I don't know the name of the position, but let's just call them, for the sake of argument, Mercury, right? Because Halloween, like whoosh, or no, that's the god of war. No, let's just call him Mercury anyway, okay? So he runs towards the end of the field and he catches it. And it's supposed to like really be able to help like load points up on the scoreboard. And it's really supposed to help bring a very dynamic game and you can do more plays or something like that. I don't know. But that is what my dad brought to South Texas. And apparently, according to people who like do history analysis of football in Texas, my dad was one of the coaches that brought that down. So it's super cool. Really proud of my dad for doing that. Unfortunately, since I was like new and revolutionary in South Texas, as in all things that are new and progressive and revolutionary in South Texas, it doesn't really take. It takes a little while for people to like get on board, and not a lot of people were very happy that my dad brought the run and shoot offense to South Texas. And in doing so, he didn't have a lot of fans. People really liked their running game. Which is so weird to me because like now, this is how people play the game, right? I mean, this is what I'm told. People play the game this way. So my dad worked as a coach at Robstown ISD, and then he went to King High School, and he kind of like went back and forth, because coaches are kind of nomads. But my dad stayed in the Coastal Bend, and some seasons were great, and some seasons weren't so great, but he was staying true to this run and shoot offense and kind of bringing more and more schools into this type of offense. And then unfortunately, in the late 80s, for whatever reason, my dad decided that he wanted to be the high school football coach at the school that his children attended. I feel like I should build the suspense up, but I don't think that I need to build the suspense up here. This sucked a lot. I mean, imagine every Monday morning in the first semester of school, from first period to seventh period, all day long, the only thing that you hear from teachers, classmates, school administrators, how bad your dad sucks, how bad his football sucks, his run and shoot sucks, running game, blah, 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 from everybody. I mean, my personal experience taught me that even a janitor holds no bars to coming up to a Texas football coach's kid while she's exiting the girls' bathroom to tell them how badly your dad's football coaching skills suck. And at the time when I was a freshman, I didn't know anything about football, and I clearly have exhibited that here today. I didn't know anything about football. My previous football experience, aside from watching my dad's teams play at the 50-yard line, was my brothers would let me play in the neighborhood games every now and then with other neighborhood kids. And they only invited me to play because they needed the teams to be even, right? And even at that point, I was given very explicit instructions on, okay, this is the play we're gonna make. And like the weirdest names, like the flea flicker. Like, we're gonna do the flea flicker, and my only job was to follow their play to the T, right? And so that was it. That was me getting to play football. That was my neighborhood football experience. But all that ended when I started to get boobs. Because number one, it hurt when they tackled me, and all of a sudden it was like, ouch. And then number two, those neighborhood boys started to get a little handsy. So that's ended my career very quickly. So my freshman year, during the first semester of school, I'm just completely over it. I'm over all of it. I'm over football. I don't play football anymore. And this time I'd moved on. By this time, I'd moved on to Shakespeare. I mean, I was reading Othello, and I just discovered Tennessee Williams, not only his plays, but his poetry. And speaking of poetry, there wasn't a poet that I didn't love. And I'd watch VHS tapes of musicals, which I don't even like musicals anymore, but at the time I loved musicals, and I was just like, God gosh, Tevye is so deep. He's asking so many great questions about God. Fiddler on the Roof, for you that don't know. And like, these are the things that are filling my head when I'm a high school freshman, and all these people want to talk to me about is football. And I couldn't understand it. And it was kind of bad. I mean, it was bad my freshman year. And then it got incrementally more shitty my sophomore year. But by the time I was a junior, it was like an all-out war zone. The football players that were also my classmates would snigger and laugh at me and talk openly about how dumb my dad was, right? And how dumb the run and shoot offense was, and how it was his fault that there weren't more wins and losses on that oh so precious Texas high school game. And I got to hear all the time on those Monday mornings how we were ruining our school because my dad didn't know how to be a football coach. There was one teacher in particular who would give a play-by-play every Monday morning of the Friday before a game, and she would direct it at me, and then at times like turn and glance to the other classmates, and ironically that class was full of the football players who had lost the game the day before, and she's just telling me how much my dad sucks without actually saying my dad sucks, right? So that was my high school. Meanwhile, I don't know, I can't defend my dad, I can't argue, I am completely disinterested in this thing that they call football. See, my dad chose to work in a small school. My dad chose to be a football coach so that he could coach his sons and so that he could be around us. And every single person who was criticizing my father and my family's livelihood felt that that made us all, my entire family, like some kind of like open game. So I got to a point where I'd had enough. And this one particular teacher who would do the Monday play-by-plays, her class was already a difficult class for me, but I was failing it. I wonder why. And so were also all the football players. And we had to spend an entire class period, and I remember this memory, it's so vivid for me. We all had to spend an entire class period getting our grades up because all of us were somehow involved in some extracurricular activity, and you all remember no pass, no play, right? Now, I, of course, was involved in the theater department, and also I played golf. When you're a coach's kid, you have to play a sport, all right? Let's put that out there. And so, because I was failing and everyone else was failing, I had to get my grade up. So we spent the entire course period that day, the teacher helping us. And when I say helping us, she was just literally doing the work for us. And it's this juxtaposition of all the football players got jokes and laughing and cheerful helping from our teacher. And I got a one-on-one lecture of how much my dad sucks. And this one was like, my dad sucks. Like, this was literally, this time wasn't general. This one was about my father. And I just sat there and I couldn't say anything because not only was my father a coach, he was a teacher. And along with high school football, the other thing that I was taught to respect was teachers. And you don't argue with a teacher, you don't disrespect a teacher, you sit quietly and do what the teacher says. And so while this one-on-one lecture about how horrible the run and shoot offense is and the purity of the running game and how horribly my father is doing and how he's shaming our school, I'm sitting there listening to her, and I remember looking to my right, and there was one of my classmates who was also a football player, and he was sitting there. And I remember him specifically because he had this square jaw, tan skin, crystal blue eyes. His body was built to play these sports that everyone was so obsessed with. And I also had a baby crush on him. I'll just admit that too. And I'm looking at him while my teacher is like going on and on and on. And in my memory, he's laughing and sniggering and doing the thing that they all always did. And I remember looking at him and his face got like distorted, you know, like a cartoon, like it just got like real stretchy and his teeth got real long and he just looked like a joke to me. And I mean, I'm really mad and I'm really frustrated and I wanted to tell the teacher, this has nothing to do with me. What about me and my interests have anything to do with you thinking I care about this football team and how it's doing? And then I turned and I looked at him and I just had enough and I said, what are you laughing at? You couldn't catch a football to save your life. I've gotten really better at chewing people out now. There's like a lot more curse words involved now. So really, there's a part of the story that I also forgot to tell y'all. And that is that my dad coached football in the fall, but he was a girls' track coach in the spring. And he was also good at that. And as I've gotten older and I walk around in my life, and I still live in the area clearly that where my father coached, and I run into people who when they find out my last name, they're like, oh, are you this coach's daughter? And I'm like, yes, I am. And there's two groups of people. There's the football group, and then there's the girls' track group. I prefer any day to talk about the women who have been positively impacted by my father coaching them and believing in them and helping them learn something about themselves and how their body could be pushed to its max limit over anything about high school football. Because it turns out those football people are pretty bitchy. Thank you.